What's up, guys? Ray here for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Council. Welcome to the top 10 countdown. Goddamn, it feels good to say those words. Top 10 countdown of the top 10 synchros so far. Because you never know when Konami's going to come out with more, and this is one of my favorite top 10s to do, but I haven't done it in like 2 years or so. So I think it was plenty weight of a time. You know, there was enough time to really go back and redo this list because it's a really fun list for me, and at the same time I want to make a video that I enjoy, that I think you guys will enjoy. So I would love to hear your personal opinions on my list and what you guys would think were the top 10, whatever the hell reason it is. Share it down in the comment section below. It's pretty simple, right? Everyone can do it. Everyone's got a voice. All you gotta do is just type it out because that's YouTube. To kick us off on this monumental list, I'm gonna start with Clearwing Synchro Dragon because goddammit, Clearwing changed the game for me. I didn't believe in level 7 synchros outside of Black Rose during the time, and that was for a long time. I was pretty damn stubborn about it. I'm like, there's no other good ones. There was Dark Strike Fighter before he got his errata and went to the Poopville, but Clearwing changed that. Clearwing comes out, puts pressure on the opponent, and then it just changed the game from when it came out, from these synchros that were kind of just either I burn you or I blow you up, and otherwise you're called Ancient Synchro Wyvern and you have a deck that can play, and that just leads to an OTK because you're a light deck and it's a level 7. Those were the best ones. I guess if you count Ancient Fairy Dragon, that's a thing, and we just went to Lightning Round. Hello. And there's a lot that I just said. But in short, Clearwing changed the game of just what you expect from level 7s. It was the indicator that the times were about to change upon us. We were getting Moonlight. We were getting this. We were getting, what is the other one? The Oddeyes one that comes in the structure deck from the Magicians. The name eludes me. I'm terribly sorry. But Clearwing just basically said, anything that is level 5 or higher that wants to activate its effect is going to get pooped on. If you don't like it, tough shit. And of course, you have a deck like Speedroids that can bring us out easily. And it's also Wind, which is great to see because Wind does not get a lot of love in this game. And it was great to see that. That's just my personal opinion, and why it's at number 10 is because everything on the list matters a little bit more. Number 9, Stardust Dragon. This card, when it came out, changed the game. Does it have the same, way of handling things? Not so much anymore, but when you can bring it out with some established back row, your opponent ain't getting through because Twin Twister ain't doing shit. I love Stardust. It's probably one of the first level 8 synchros I consider, besides Omega, maybe Crystal Wing if my deck can actually, put it in and make it work. It's one of those level 8 synchros that I always go back to. And just for clarification, not Clarence, we are going to mention not Stardust Spark Dragon, but the original Stardust Dragon. Stardust Spark is great in its own right, and I guess you can include it here too, but I'm just going to include Stardust Dragon. So when it came out during Teledad, people freaked the fuck out and wanted it on the ban list because cards like Smashing Ground and just Fissure were popular in a way of handling things. The original gadgets ran red, green, yellow, known as Ketchup, Mustard, and Relish in my area. Of course, we had 3 Fissure and 3 Smashing Ground. That was the shit back then. You can't get away with that now. Stardust led to the way of, my monster's gonna have protection. Come back and do it all over again. Goddamn, I love me some synchros, and Stardust was a great foundation to kick us off. And Stardust Spark Dragon is a great evolution of that, but my personal preference is that Stardust Dragon just has a bigger impact when summoned. Again, my personal preference. My number 8 comes down to Black Rose Dragon. There were still a lot of times that I want to make a Black Rose nuke the board and secure me a victory because I was able to take away my opponent's advantage. In that scenario, I'm able to take out everything that my opponent established with 1 card, and I loved it. There's also, for that random time, you're playing a plant deck that you can drop your opponent's monsters to 0, but that usually doesn't happen too often at all. So it's pretty much just a freaking dark hole on crack that destroys back rows. It's super fun to do, and it's not nearly as powerful as it used to be, but blowing up your opponent's board can still be one hell of a game changer. It can sway the way that you play the game if your opponent can't get that advantage, or you can do something to put that pressure on them, or you go late game, it's still amazing, even in this day and age. My number 7 is Scarlight Red Dragon Arching, because I absolutely love this thing. The fact that it blows up monsters, inflicts 300, and you can attack for a whopping 3,000 stat. Of course, there's the ones that you can build upon this, which is always great. But I love me this Red Dragon Arching, and it still feels really powerful to me when I'm playing anything that can run Synchros. Synchros aren't seen nearly as much as they used to be, but don't be fooled, because you never know when they'll come back up when a deck can actually support the living crap out of them. And let's be real here. Scarlight Red Dragon Arching is one hell of a synchro for what it does. Being able to pretty much Raigeki your opponent, and they take 500 for each one, and you're able to dish out 3,000 for a level 8 synchro, that is pretty laughable to be able to summon. Yeah, that's still pretty good even by today's standards, I gotta admit. Now we come on to number 6. We're coming on the halfway point. Ultimaya. Yeah, I know what you're probably saying. Why not Quasar? Because Ultimaya does something Quasar doesn't. It requires a level 5 or a level 6 and a level 6 tuner or a level 5 tuner. And those are really easy to make nowadays. It's really laughable the amount of decks that can bring this out. And just the fact that this spits out Crystal Wing by setting a card on the game, the freaking board, and you get that Crystal Wing out. Yeah, that's pretty much why I like this better than Quasar. Quasar would have had a spot on this list if it would not been for Tamaya. Ultimaya is just fucking amazing in what it does. I mean, follow up that Crystal Wing with another Crystal Wing, or you want to get really weird about it, put that Void Ogre Dragon or that BLs. And as long as that dragon's on the board, this thing ain't going away, and it's going to spit out more and more dragons as long as you can set cards. You gotta love that, seriously. You cannot tell me you do not like that. That is some good shit. Alright, now that we're 5 down, these are the final 5, but honestly, the final 4 are probably the hardest ones for me when it came down to making this list over the past couple of hours. The final hours of putting it together. Number 5 is Notorio Beast. It's an anti-spell fragrance on legs. It cripples pendulum decks, and there's not too many decks that when this is summoned are going to be able to jump around it when they're weak to the loss of advantage of spell cards. The simple cause of sending the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard to nullify a spell card, it's laughable. This is one hell of a synchro, and even though it only has 2200 attack, its effect makes up for it. Just for the simple fact, your opponent's not going to be able to Raigeki, Darkhold, Twin Twister, or any draw power card that involves spell cards, or of course, pendulums. It's better than anti-spell fragrance because you're not allowing them to play it. It's a you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh syndrome, but it is what it is, and it's amazing at what it does. The final 4, like I said, gave me the hardest time. So, these are my personal picks in the big 4. Trishula. Yes, I know. I may be not saying it correctly, but don't correct me. It's fine. Sometimes I say it right, sometimes I don't. Trish is a synchro that was on the ban list for quite a while, and for the sheer fact, for a good reason. It takes out 3 cards. 1 from the hand, 1 from the grave, 1 from the field. All at once, we're at 2700 body, and a pretty damn easy requirement of 2 non-tuners and 1 tuner. It's pretty easy. Granted, when this thing was at 3, it was a lot stronger than it is at 1. But even at 1, it's still something people look out for and want to add to their, extra deck if they can. It's something that they're still going to want to play because you can easily change the tide of battle at the right situation with this one freaking card. My number 3 may actually surprise a few of you. It's Brionac. Brionac is still on the ban list. And the main reason he's still on the ban list is because of the infinite loops that happen with him. That is not going to change anytime soon, but infinite loops do not help out just, OTKing your opponent and whatnot, or causing a difference in the game state. Coral Dragon is a nice replacement. Obviously, it's not on this list because Coral Dragon's good. Brio pretty much is like Coral Dragon on crack. It returns it to the hand, and you can constantly do it per turn as long as you have cards in your hand. So if you take the Max Seed Challenge against your opponent, they drop a Brio, everything's going back and you ain't getting nothing. So the main reason Brio makes the cut at 3 and not higher is because times have changed. Even though he's not ban-worthy for his effect, it's the loops he caused that Konami is the reason why they won't bring him back. And his interactions, of course, with Mermel's. Can you imagine Mermel's constantly having that? Yeah, that's kind of scary all in itself. Granted, they have that with Coral Dragon, but keep in mind, with Coral Dragon, they're going to do it once per turn. If a word change clause would happen, then obviously I would have to update this list again, and Brio would be bloop, all the way at the bottom pretty much. And maybe Quasar would come and play or something else that is more deserving. But as of right now, Brionac is my number 3 pick. The final 2 should be apparent at this point, because they are the most relevant 2, and they are pretty much the biggest 2 that you should care about. My number 2 spot goes to Cyframe Lord Omega. Now, before you get your pitchforks to dislike bomb everything, let me just completely point out why. Cyframe Lord Omega, with the 3 of them, is devastating. Yes. How many decks that you know are going to be able to play over just 3 Cyframe Lord Omegas? There's actually a good chunk of them. And just the time and dedication that it takes to make out 3 Cyframe Lord Omegas compared to 3 Crystal Wings. Crystal Wing does more to the game state than Cyframe Lord Omega does. Yes, Cyframe Lord Omega can cause loops and has interactions with banished cards, but it's my personal opinion that Crystal Wing goes further and is more of a threat when on the board than Cyframe Lord Omega. Maybe it's just because of the decks I play, I have an easier time going over Omega than I do Crystal Wing. I don't really know. But again, personal opinion comes down to Omega being at number 2. That's not calling him bad. That's just saying that Crystal Wing is a little bit better. When you bring out a Crystal Wing to your opponent, to your opponent's face, and it's sitting there, your opponent immediately has to jump over it, or monster effects are not going to be able to be used. And that takes out one key aspect, just like Notorious Beast. And yes, you can bait it out, like you could bait a Treat Toad out, or you can bait out an Omega, to banish itself out. All these interactions are going to play out in one way or another, and it'll come down to a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill. A little bit. So, my personal opinion is that Cyframe Lord Omega is fantastic at what it does, and that's why it gets a number 2 spot, but Crystal Wing does more devastation to the board than Cyframe Lord Omega does. Again, my personal opinion, but I'd love to hear yours. So, number 2 spot, Cyframe Lord Omega. Number 1, Crystal Wing, because Crystal Wing is absolutely fantastic right now. Why is Omega more money than Crystal Wing? Because it's my personal opinion, more people are looking for Omega because it's easier to summon. That's just the conclusion on that part if someone's going to ask. I have a feeling someone would. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. And drop a comment if you have something to say. Or you want to request something on the channel. But let me know what you want to see next week on Top 10. Right now, I'm considering maybe doing Top 10 Exceeds, because that would go hand in hand with this. And then we'll take a break from the extra deck and we'll focus on something else at that point. But I just want to say thank you guys for the continued support. It means the world. And I'll see you tomorrow for more Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. Till then.